If you're thinking about sailing on a Disney cruise, maybe you have one booked and you are super excited, but also a little bit overwhelmed, you're in the right place. In this video, I'm going to be sharing everything I wish someone had told me before our first Disney cruise, plus some top tips and things I'll be doing now we're ready to embark our fifth Disney cruise on the Disney Fantasy this summer, which is quite exciting because we will leave the ship Gold Castaway Club members. Don't worry, I'll explain all of that as we go through the video. If you're new around here, hi, my name's Rhiannon Morgan, everyone calls me Rhi. Welcome to my Magical Adventures channel, where I share all things Disney cruise, Disney parks, plus magical adventures beyond Disney, sharing all of the magic and the tips to help you make the most of your own trip, with bonus tips if, like me, you have children with autism. The first thing I wish I'd known before our first Disney cruise is that you can book directly through Disney, but it's not the only way you can book. You can also book through third-party travel agents, and while the price isn't likely to be wildly different between the two, it is possible if you're booking through a third-party travel agent that you may get some extra bonuses such as onboard credit. The next thing I wish someone had told me before our first Disney cruise is that although you should download the Disney Cruise Line app right away, I definitely recommend doing that, it really does light up when you get on board. The Disney Cruise Line Navigator app, when you're on shore before you embark the ship, has all the basic information about your cruise and your booking. But when you get on the ship, it transforms into a totally new app. You have access to all of the schedules and events available on your cruise. Plus you can message people within your party too. So if you're a little disappointed with the app before you get on board, fear not. It does everything you need before you embark, and it will get so much better as soon as you step on board. All you'll need to do is link up to the ship's Wi-Fi when you get on board to access all the extra features and information on the app. Now, something that also I find a little bit confusing before our first Disney cruise was the Disney Cruise Line Wi-Fi. Obviously, while you're out at sea, you're very unlikely to be able to get actual phone signal. So if you want to access the wider internet, you are going to need to pay for onboard Wi-Fi. But there is basic Wi-Fi that you can access for things like accessing the Disney Cruise Line Navigator app included in the price of your cruise. So even if you don't wish to pay the reasonably steep charges for the Disney Cruise Line full Wi-Fi access, you'll still be able to access the Navigator app to see which events are coming up, contact guest services, and to message other members of your party. Something we did actually do before our first cruise, but I'm going to recommend to everyone going on a cruise, is to think about booking a hotel near to the port before your cruise. Especially if you're sailing from the UK, the traffic here in the UK is kind of bonkers and a little bit unpredictable. So if you live over, I say, an hour from the port, I'd highly recommend just getting there the night before, checking into a hotel, waking up, having a leisurely breakfast, so you don't step on board feeling totally frazzled because you've been stuck in a traffic jam and panicking about missing your embarkation time. The next thing that was a little confusing before our first cruise, but is probably less so now, was which documents you're going to need in order to embark the ship. Now, our first cruise was way back in 2021 on the Disney Magic at Sea, which was one of those COVID cruises where we embarked the ship and went out into the ocean and sailed round and round, enjoyed the Disney Magic, and then came back to shore. It was a funny time. So we didn't technically need passports for that cruise because we were not entering any other countries. Now, obviously, when we sail to Spain, we are going to need our passports in order to embark the ship. But what is important to know is that the travel documents that you are going to need for your specific cruise are going to vary depending on where your cruise is leaving from, where your cruise is sailing to, and which nationality you are. So it's really important to check with Disney Cruise Line which documents you are specifically going to need in order to embark the ship, and also then which documents you're going to need to take to get on and off the ship at the port adventures. The next thing I wish someone had told me before our first cruise was to order room service breakfast, even if you're planning to go for sit-down breakfast. Now, the sit-down breakfasts on the cruise are lovely. In fact, you have both the sit-down table service breakfast options plus your quick service buffet breakfast options, both of which are stunning. However, Disney Cruise Line, especially when you've got kids, is such an exciting experience. And often you'll be walking on the way to breakfast with your children, and they'd be like, oh my goodness, there's Mickey. Oh, I just want to do this. I just want to do that. And you're like, I know you want to go and enjoy the magic, but I need to feed you, because as your mother, I kind of feel obligated to make sure you've eaten something before you're going to enjoy some more magic. So even if you are planning to go for a lovely sit down breakfast, order room service to your room. Your kids can pick at it and graze while you're getting ready in the mornings. If they're still hungry and you still want to go for a sit down breakfast after that, great. But if magic happens and you get distracted, then you're not going to feel really, really guilty that your kids have not yet eaten. Room service breakfast is included in the price of your cruise on every morning other than the very last morning, which is debarkation day. In order to get room service delivered to your room, you simply fill out the little slip. On, I think, our second cruise, I couldn't find the slip on the first morning, but if you're looking for it, there'll be a large dressing table in your stateroom, and the center drawer there is generally where you will find these room service slips. Make sure you fill out your breakfast order and the time you'd like it delivered to your stateroom, and just hang that on the outside of your stateroom door before you go to sleep. As long as you leave it out by 3 in the morning, then that room service will be brought to you the next morning at your selected time. I find this really takes the pressure off, and regardless of our breakfast plans, I now always order room service breakfast on our cruises. The next thing I wish someone had told me was to make sure to order room service at other times of the day too. While room service breakfast is ordered on the slip which you leave on your stateroom door, if you want to order room service the rest of the day, call guest services using the phone in your stateroom and order whatever you fancy. The menu can be found on your Disney Cruise Line Navigator app. And just remember, even if Mickey bars are not technically on the menu, they are always on the menu. So make sure you ask for some to be delivered with your room service. By the way, if you are planning a Disney cruise, I have got the perfect free resource for you. Head to mummyoffour.com/plan cruise, pop your email in the box, and I'll send you my free planning resources taking you step by step through everything you need to know before your Disney cruise to make the most of the magic. The next thing I wish someone had told me before our first Disney cruise was to really think about which dining slot you want to go for that's going to suit your family. So that you know what I'm talking about, I'm going to briefly explain rotational dining, but for full details all about rotational dining on the Disney Cruise Line, make sure you check out my deep dive rotational dining video. So rotational dining is where you get allocated a different dining room each night of your cruise, and the same server team follow you restaurant to restaurant. This is such an amazing service because your dining server teams get to know you so well. They take such amazing care of you. Every time we've cruised, the dining teams have been next level and have really made our cruise special. So while you don't choose which restaurant you go to each night, you get told that on your Disney Cruise Line Navigator app. It tells you which restaurant you're dining at and which table number you're at, and it will be at the same table number in each restaurant. So if your table number is 40, you'll always be at table 40. But what you do get to choose before you embark the ship is whether you do early or later dining time. Now for our first cruise, our youngest was 4. She was really little, and our children eat at 5 p.m. at home. So it seemed like an absolute no-brainer to choose the early dining time. I thought there's no way my children were going to manage till 8-ish without eating. It just wasn't going to work. But what I failed to consider until we were actually on board was just how much we were going to be eating all day through the cruise. And the problem I found with the early dining was that I just was not hungry enough to eat enough of my food because I'd been eating all of the delicious food all day. The other consideration is if you've got early dining, unless it's a sea day where there may be a matinee performance of the show, if you want to see the show, you'll be in the later show time. You will have heard me talk about this if you've seen my video about all of the magic included in your Disney cruise, but the shows are not to be missed. They are absolutely fantastic, spectacular Broadway quality shows. They're around an hour long, which is a perfect length for kids to pack in loads of magic while also keeping their attention. And like I said, if it's a sea day, there's likely to be a matinee, but if you want to see the show on a port adventure day and you're early dining, you're going to be later show anyway. So it's not like your kids are necessarily going to be going to bed if they want to see the show. So while early dining may seem sensible, and if you've got children that just cannot stay up late, then that's going to be your option. But if you're thinking about keeping your kids up later anyway, just keep in mind you might still be pretty full in the early dining slot. Something I wish that I'd been told before our first cruise is as magic as the Disney cruise is, There's quite a lot of planning that goes into it beforehand. And luckily for you, I've got just the thing to make sure you get all of that done to maximize the magic. Make sure you pick up a copy of my Magical Cruise Planner. This is available in both printable format, as an instant download, or in a printed book shipped directly to your door. This is the ultimate planner to take you through everything you need to do to plan your magical cruise, from picking a ship, all the booking arrangements and planning before you board, outfit planning, packing checklists, plus making the most of the magic of every day you're on board and magical memories too. There's even a kids version with all of the boring grown-up booking information taken out and loads of activities to keep them busy while they're waiting in the port, plus space to draw their favourite characters, a great activity while they're waiting in line to see them, and space to collect autographs too. I'll leave all of the details below. Don't forget, if you are inside of my Magical Adventures Club, which is the perfect place for magical travel loving families like yours, to get early access vlogs, bonus content, and printable bonuses to help you plan your magical adventures, plus discounts to be used inside of my planner store. Head to mummyof4.com/join to get started for free. There is a forever free plan if that's what you want, or to join the full Magical Adventures Club and grab all of those bonuses. Something else I wish that someone had told me before our first cruise was, much like the parks, on a Disney cruise, you're probably going to want to think about having comfortable footwear. Now, while Disney Cruise is very much choose your own adventure, and I know a lot of people who have very relaxing cruises, it's very chilled. That's not the way my children like to do a Disney cruise. My children like to do a Disney cruise by really maximizing the magic, charging all around the ship, doing things like the Midship Detective Agency, where we're running around the ship for clues. If you've seen all of the cruise vlog series, you'll know we do a lot of steps on a Disney cruise. And if you've not seen any of my Disney cruise vlogs yet, I will link some of the playlists below so you can catch those later. So even though you do not have to, we do a lot of walking on a Disney cruise to get around everything. So just like if you're visiting the Disney parks, I'd highly recommend considering comfortable footwear. I like to go for either flip-flops or Skechers, which are my go-to park shoes. And if you saw one of my recent videos, I have actually bought Skechers wedges as evening shoes for our upcoming cruise. So fingers crossed, those are as comfortable as my Skechers trainers, and I won't end up with my feet cut to bits by pretty shoes like I did on my first cruise. The next thing I wish someone had told me before our first Disney cruise was to think about wearing some shorts underneath my dresses. If you saw our first cruise vlog series where we were on the Magic, I had a little bit of a Marilyn Monroe moment at port on deck 11. Since then, I've always worn shorts or dresses with built-in shorts underneath all of my dresses on both the cruises and in the parks, so we're not flashing pants to passers-by. The next thing I wish someone had told me before our first Disney cruise was to budget for a placeholder. Now, a placeholder is something that seasoned cruisers know all about, but is not necessarily publicised even by Disney Cruise Line themselves. A placeholder is where you give a deposit for an upcoming cruise before you disembark the ship. You give Disney Cruise Line $250 per stateroom for up to 2 staterooms, and then you have 24 months from that date to sail on your next Disney cruise and enjoy a massive 10% off. Now, while Disney Cruise Line is far from bad value, I would say the value you get on board is incredible and the service is exceptional. They're not cheap. So 10% off, especially when you're traveling with a large family, is a significant saving. And the best part is, if you don't want to use your deposit, you can request it back at any time. It'll be refunded in full. And if you don't use it within that 24 months, it will be automatically refunded to you. So you've got nothing to lose. It's also well worth noting that if you pay through the app for this placeholder, you will be charged in dollars. Everything on board is in dollars, and if you want to pay for your next cruise in dollars, then that's absolutely fine. Go ahead and do it through the app. However, if you pay your placeholder deposit in dollars, you will need to pay for your entire next cruise in dollars. And if you are planning to use credit cards or different currencies to pay for any of your next cruise, then you may want to pay in your own currency, which in our case is British pounds. So rather than doing it through the app, head to guest services and they'll sort this out for you. I did not know that. That was the second cruise that we went on that I made that mistake. Something I really do wish I'd understood before our first cruise is that although bookable extras on a Disney cruise are amazing, they are not essential. I've got a full video detailing all of the options for bookable extras that you can opt for during your Disney cruise, including things like adult-only dining, the Bibbidi Bobbidi Boutique, beverage tasting seminars, and port adventures. But for first-time cruisers who are not yet in the Castaway Club and don't have early access to booking these things, it's likely that the activities you're hoping to book may be sold out by the time it's your turn to log in as a first-time cruiser. Rewind, let me just explain all about the Castaway Club and why people can log in at different times to book different things. The Castaway Club is Disney Cruise Line's loyalty scheme, and the more times you sail with Disney Cruise Line, the further up the Castaway Club you go. As soon as you step off your first cruise, you are in the Castaway Club as a Silver Castaway Club member and get perks such as the ability to book your cruise early, meaning you're going to have more choice of staterooms to pick from, book your bookable activities early, so you're more likely to be able to get the ones you want, and do your online check-in earlier than first-time cruisers too, meaning you're going to get a better choice of port arrival times. Basically, you should be able to get on the ship a bit quicker and start your cruise sooner. Full details can be found on the Disney Cruise Line website, plus inside of my magical cruise planner too. So on our first cruise, I'd heard how amazing the Bibbidi Bobbidi Boutique was, and I really wanted to try and book it for my girls, and it was all sold out. But honestly, it didn't matter. We had so much fun on our first cruise and our second cruise, and every cruise we've been on for that matter. But it wasn't until our third Disney cruise that we did any bookable extras, and we were far from bored. Disney Cruise Line is very much choose your own adventure. You cannot physically get round everything. There are multiple activities scheduled every hour, and you just have to pick and choose the ones you want to do. So if you don't get your special adult-only dining reservation, you're not going to go hungry. If your kids don't get Bibbidi Bobbidi Boutique, they're not going to miss out on the magic. It's still going to be an amazing, amazing experience. With that being said, if you have got your heart set on certain bookable activities, make sure you are checking in as early as possible according to your Castaway Club status to book your bookable activities. Check out my bookable activities video, plus my vlogs where I take you through the whole process for more information. Now, something I didn't realize before our first Disney cruise is just how amazing Disney is with dietary needs. So if you've got fussy eaters, do not panic. No one's going to starve. If there's something your kids are after and it's not on the menu, just ask. 99% of the time, your servers will find it for you and your children. Often we've been in restaurants, my husband's been like, oh, really fancy that steak we had last night, it was amazing. And they're like, no worries, I'll get it for you. I've been there dithering over desserts, not knowing which one to have, so they bring me both. The service really is exceptional. And the menu is almost more like a guide than a fixed thing. Though while we do have additional needs in our family and that my children have autism, we are lucky that they don't have any dietary needs. And I know it must be incredibly stressful to travel with children with severe allergies and things. And I've spoken to so many of you on board. So thank you if you've ever come to say hi to us on a Disney cruise. It's so nice to hear that you've enjoyed the videos and the vlogs and they've helped you prepare for your cruise. And by the way, if you are sailing on a Disney cruise on the Fantasy this summer or any future Disney cruise and you spot us, I'll be the one with the camera and a million children in tow. Please do come and say hi. It's really lovely to meet you all. But while I've chatted to so many of you, lots of you do have children with dietary needs and severe allergies and things. And every single time I've had this conversation with one of you, you've all said how amazing and accommodating Disney have been, which is just so lovely to hear. Next thing I wish I'd thought about a little bit more before our first Disney cruise is what to take on in hand luggage versus put in the cases. The whole luggage system with Disney Cruise Line is so much easier than traveling on, say, an aeroplane. You check your cases in and then they just meet you at your stateroom as if by magic. They automatically appear there. Your cases won't necessarily be available as soon as you get on board. So you need to make sure you pack essentials in your carry-on. Think about whether you want to swim in the pool as soon as you get on board. Now, we never do the pools on embarkation day. Embarkation day is so busy, which again is something I wish I'd been prepared for before our first cruise. It is so magical and it's so jam-packed. So swimming's not something we do that day, but if swimming is something your kids are going to be desperate to do, make sure you pack that stuff in your carry-on. But I think for me, I just wish I'd taken a wheelie case rather than just a backpack with me. I had a backpack with all of my laptops and tech gear and stuff on our first Disney cruise, and that just ended up being quite heavy. So for subsequent cruises, I've always put all my tech stuff, which I like to keep with me, not just my cameras and things that I'm vlogging with, but you know, my laptops and hard drives and things like that, in a drag along wheelie case, which is much easier to drag around. And I don't end up getting a bad back carrying it because it's heavy while I'm waiting for the staterooms to open. Now, something I did do on our first cruise, and I've done every cruise since, and I know you're going to need to do this too, is make sure you've brought refillable water bottles. But I recommend taking 2 different types of refillable water bottles on a Disney cruise. Make sure you take your insulated water bottles so you can fill those up with drinks and they can stay nice and cool as you're around the ship. But if you also pack non-insulated water bottles, you can fill up with water when you're on deck, pop those in the fridge in your stateroom, and that way you've got nice chilled water whenever you need it around the clock. Now, you can always get drinks brought to your stateroom within room service, but you do need to bear in mind that while room service food is included, soft drinks are not included in room service, so they will be an upcharge. Soft drinks are included with your meals, they're included in the quick service restaurants, they're included on deck. It is important to remember that soft drinks are an upcharge if you purchase them at a bar or alongside your room service. Something else I wish I'd known before my first Disney cruise, or maybe I don't, because should anyone have to experience this before they really have to go through it? And that's just how hard the Disney blues hit you when you're getting off the ship. You are immersed in so much magic on board, and having to get off the ship is a very emotional experience, which can unfortunately only be cured by booking another Disney trip. And of course, once you've booked your Disney cruise, you are going to need to think about packing. Now, there are quite a few things I wish I'd packed before our first Disney cruise that I always pack now when we travel. So if you click on the video on screen now, I will tell you all about the things that you need to pack, the things you are not going to want to leave behind. Make sure you're joining me inside of my Magical Adventures Club for early release videos, bonus printables, planner store discounts. I will link my Magical Cruise Planner below so you can pick up your copy, and I will see you in that video where we'll chat packing. See you real soon.